What's going on, folks? This is Matt here for GameSphere, where we look at how to best spend that limited financial stuff that you have called money on video games. Get the most bang for your buck. And I thought this would be an interesting thing to do. Um, RGT 85 is very much known as, well, I'm going to call him a Nintendo fanboy. Let's just say he's a very heavily invested in the Switch. And that's fine, whatever. I'm not slagging that, but knowing how much of a fan of the Switch he is, he recently did get a Steam Deck, and I kind of want to see what his take on it is. So let's see what RGT 85 has to say about the Steam Deck, and according to him, why every Nintendo Switch owner needs a Steam Deck.
So recently, of course, I ended up acquiring a Steam Deck for the very first time, and I was pretty impressed with the system. I, of course, made an initial video talking about my experiences after a couple days with it, and for the most part, it was pretty positive. Yes, there are some drawbacks to the platform, but for the most part, I was pleasantly surprised. I was really enjoying my time with this system. I even tried to make another Steam-related video this week on the channel, but YouTube doesn't have a sense of humor and they put an age restriction on that. I'm not sure why. These games are available on the Steam store. YouTube, are you anti-Steam store? Because that's not very sex worker positive now, is it? Now is it? But of course, when you talk about something like a Steam Deck, you automatically start to get comparisons to a Nintendo Switch. I made some jokes in my video talking about, oh, I'm no longer covering the Nintendo Switch or anything like that. I'm going to be an all Steam Deck channel. Obviously, that was just a joke, but a lot of people take that sort of mentality and start to run with it because of how we're preconditioned as consumers. Everything is sort of a war, you know, Mercedes versus BMW. Mercedes is better, but is it really better? No, that's just my opinion. And when you look at something like a Steam Deck, and you look at something like a Nintendo Switch, they're very similar systems. Both have a strong portable aspect to them. Both can be docked and played on your television. So you automatically get involved in these console wars when talking about one system or another. I'm not a big fan of console wars unless we're talking about the YouTube channel Console Wars, which of course takes a look at old games from Sega and Nintendo and compares them together. Great channel. I love those guys. I remember one of the guys was doing Seek and Destroy one year at Too Many Games After Party. Seek and Destroy. Shout out to Dan from Console Wars. Make sure you guys check them out if you haven't yet. But I think Console Wars are dumb. And I think everyone tries to engage in a console war with the Steam Deck and a Nintendo Switch. And the more I've been playing my Steam Deck, I finally had that epiphany. I finally had that aha moment. It's not about which system is better because better is subjective. It's more so about why, if you have a Nintendo Switch, you should probably have a Steam Deck too, because they complement each other so well, it's ridiculous. There are things that the Nintendo Switch offers that the Steam Deck doesn't offer. There are things that the Steam Deck offers that the Nintendo Switch doesn't offer. And of course, if you have both of these systems together, you have a myriad of different handheld and console experiences that you can't get with anything else out.
So the experiences and the pros, cons, and the differences, yeah, you're correct. The Switch has its differences. I'm gonna say its strength is its exclusives, and the games that are specifically developed for it work very well on it. I would say the hardware is starting to show its age, given I know I've harped on this before, but games like Xenoblade Chronicles 3 are starting to show less fluidity in the gameplay and in some of the cutscenes and stuff. Whereas games like Astral Chain and those show very much a solid fluidity in the game. So I'm thinking that the hardware's kind of hitting that ceiling. But as far as the experiences, yeah. So like a game like that has constantly been shown by people is Control. You can play a cloud version and all that nonsense, or you can just buy it on the deck and play it locally without an internet connection, or so you decide. So there's stuff like that where the experience is going to be a whole lot better. Or if you want to play like the remasters of like Crisis and stuff, you can. It's funny how that works. Or in my case, like I'm playing Far Cry Primal on the Steam Deck, which would have to be probably cloud done on the Switch at best. Or then you have games, and there's games like the Kingdom Hearts games, which are cloud streamed, which make no sense. But you can go buy them on the Epic Store and just play them locally on the Steam Deck if you want. Install Heroic and go that route. So The experience is going to be far different. You're correct. The availability of games is far different as well.
On the market. Now, I understand that obviously I'm telling you to spend a lot of money if you're a Nintendo Switch owner. You need to buy a Steam Deck, but you've already bought a Nintendo Switch more than likely. There's been over 100 million of these sold. So a Steam Deck is a bit of an investment. I understand that, but I feel like your investment is worthwhile because of one of the main things that the Steam Deck offers you. That, of course, being the ability to play your games on your Steam account, whether your Steam account is tied to your Steam Deck or it's tied to your PC. Most of us have computers. If you're watching this, you might be watching it on a computer right now. You have a nice little computer so you can check out some stuff and, visit some adult sites. And I don't know, maybe you're picking up those weird Steam games and that's the kind of stuff you like. But when you're talking about the library of games available on Steam, it is vastly different than the library of games on a Nintendo Switch. A Nintendo Switch, a Nintendo product. Why do most people buy a Nintendo product? Simply to play Nintendo related IPs, because that's what people want out of Nintendo. Your Marios, your Legend of Zeldas, your Metroids, although there's only like 2.9 million of you that would want to pick up a Metroid game, a Fire Emblem, a Xenoblade Chronicles. Nintendo's IPs are legendary and people want to play these games, and of course you can only play them on your Nintendo Switch. But tell me what one of the big drawbacks of the Nintendo Switch is when we're talking about things like games that come to the system. There's still a ton of third-party games that should have came to the system, should still be coming to the system, that have not showed up. That is where the Steam Deck really starts to shine though, because yeah, you're not going to get the latest Mario or Zelda available on your Steam Deck, but you're going to get a bunch of games that you'll want to play portably that you couldn't so far.
Uh, you can get them on the Steam Deck generically, performance issues aside. Yeah, I believe Yuzu, I believe, is the Switch emulator. Just saying. How you acquire those games? Not going to go there. But just saying, it's there.
With something like a Nintendo Switch if you're only a Nintendo Switch owner. Lately, I've been playing a ton of third-party games on my Steam Deck, and I've been pleasantly surprised. The last two games that I've been playing are Grand Theft Auto 5 and Madden 23. Now, Grand Theft Auto 5 should have came to the Switch. Of course, it came out on the Xbox, it came out on the PlayStation 3. The Switch can handle games from that era even better than those systems did initially, so there's really no excuse for Rockstar not putting this game out on the platform. Of course, you also have the fact that Rockstar is still supporting Grand Theft Auto 5. Grand Theft Auto 5 will not die anytime soon, so it's a completely big missed opportunity. Then talking about something like Madden 23, I get it. A lot of people don't like EA, but a lot of people do like football. And there's only one way to play a football game right now, and that is by playing Madden. Now, Madden, once again, is not available on the Nintendo Switch for whatever reason, and I feel like that's a big missed opportunity. Being able to play a game in your hand of football while watching a football game is a very, very fun experience. It's very engaging. It's very engrossing. You can pause the game and watch, focus on the television, or switch back and forth. So with games like Grand Theft Auto, Fallout, Madden, these third-party games that are not available on your Switch, that's where the Steam Deck comes in, and it runs these games beautifully. Like, I have had zero issues with these games. Now, there is some login stuff that you have to do because you're essentially using a personal computer. I don't know why I said a PC like that, but it's essentially a handheld PC, so you have to do things like Origin login for EA and Rockstar servers for Rockstar, which is an absolute pain in the ass, and they should get rid of that. I hate it. But it is what it is, but at least you can play these games on the system. When you look at third-party games, a ton of them end up coming to the Nintendo Switch, but sometimes they don't run all that great. What if you had an option to pick up a game available that's either on Steam or the Nintendo Switch, and if the Steam Deck version is better, you could just buy it on Steam Deck? Like, that's what this whole ecosystem offers you. If you're
So the point you're making is the whole, console versus PC master race kind of stuff. The whole point of, the strength of PC gaming, regardless of operating system and all the other stuff. The biggest strength it's always had is you determine the experience. If you go out and spend $3,000 to have a, close to top of the line desktop and all the graphics cards and all the high settings and all that stuff and run, at a 60, 144 to, whatever, 260 or whatever the next 240 for the next monitor. That's your choice. You determine the gaming experience. The pro to the consoles for all the updating nonsense and everything else was literally just drop it in, click the play button. That was it. That's the pro to the consoles. The experience is determined by the developer. So that's relative. So really, that's the biggest difference, and probably why I'm saying you're saying that people who own the Switch are gonna need the Steam Deck to as a complementary device, so that they can have a choice of, okay, the third party games are far better, like experience wise, because you can get to determine it on the Steam Deck. Compatibility and that kind of stuff, I'm not getting into that. But the fact that you can A, determine the experience, and B, that it runs well, and C, that it's supported, all kind of matters. Whereas, as I said earlier in the video, games that are specifically developed around the Switch and the hardware and utilize everything of the hardware, from power and controllers and everything else, that really is and are the best games on the Switch. Again, I love Xenoblade Chronicles 2. I'm not a big fan of the Rex as a character, but the overall game I love. I'm a big fan of Astral Chain, runs fantastically. I'm a sucker for Cyberpunk. I will be the first to admit that. So those type of games that are specifically developed for it are fantastic. I will go on record and say I am personally not a fan of Breath of the Wild, but that's more of a mechanics issue than a overall like Switch problem. So I get where he's coming from, and that's always been the debate between console and PC. One, you determine the experience, but you're going to pay a buku amount of money to do it. And one, generically, lower price to entry, but you got to rebuy everything every generation, which is kind of obnoxious unless, some places like Microsoft give you some backwards compatibility. So, and Steam, it's literally, if you already have it on a desktop or a gaming laptop or, Mac or Linux machine, it's literally just log in, it's your portal to your games. So it's an interesting dichotomy.
If you're looking at it from a non-competitive standpoint, if you're looking at it from just a game standpoint, they're great complementary systems. You also have the fact that a lot of Sony games and pretty much every Xbox game is available on Steam. So you don't have to buy an Xbox in order to play the Xbox exclusives when you could just play them on Steam. Game Pass is coming to Steam soon as well, and they're wanting to put it on the Steam Deck. With PlayStation, yeah, you're not getting them available on day one, but I've been playing Spider-Man on my Steam Deck, and it's absolutely fantastic running on the Steam Deck. I love it. I think it's a phenomenal experience to have this high quality of a game.
You can also play God of War, Days Gone, as you mentioned, Spider-Man, Uncharted Legacy Collection. There's an Uncharted series, a stack of games coming out for the deck that has already been deck verified before launch. So, yeah.
Game running in the palm of your hand. Of course, Miles Morales is coming out as well for PC, so that'll be playing on PC. But I think one of the interesting things is going forward in the future, because of the fact that, let's be realistic, I think some companies are going to start developing their games with the Steam Deck in mind. The Steam Deck has moved over 1 million systems, which is kind of impressive considering that there's been a lot of supply shortages when it came to the manufacturing of this system. So there obviously is a market for it. Considering that if you release a game on Steam, you have to consider different PCs of different quality. Having a Steam version of a game, a Steam Deck version of a game, doesn't really seem all that like a crazy sort of thought process to have with your games. Now,
No, it's not a crazy thing, because that's always been one of the strengths of the consoles, is because of that locked, fixed nature of the hardware for like a cycle of a generation. So developers get familiar with the hardware and the ins and outs and all the idiosyncrasies of that piece of hardware. While I wasn't a fan of the second game, that's why games like The Last of Us on the PS3, I'm not talking about the remaster of the remaster. I'm talking about the original release back in 2013 for the PS3. Why it looked so good and held up so well, even now, is because Naughty Dog was able to get every bit of use and knowledge out of that piece of hardware because it's fixed and locked, and they know all those idiosyncrasies of the hardware. So if companies decide to start targeting the Steam Deck as the PC version, I think it's going to have its pros and cons, of course, just like everything else. You know, we had bad PC ports back in the 360 days of very consoleized games. You know, 720p lock at 30. I'm looking at you, the original Dark Souls release on PC. Thanks to modders for fixing that. So, targeting the platform, I hope that's what they do. I hope they turn, you know, these things into targeted developer units and make it a much easier time for developers to get halfway decent hardware without breaking the bank and spending stupid amounts of money to actually develop games on a platform. That's always been, you know, the big boys problems is the developer, you know, dev kits are stupid expensive.
I will say that one of the drawbacks of the Steam Deck that I've been experiencing is playing the system in docked mode, where when you have a Nintendo Switch and you put it into dock mode, you get better performance, you get better visuals most of the time. With the Steam Deck, it doesn't seem to be the case at all. The dock doesn't really do anything but just sort of make the picture bigger, the 1200 by 800 picture that's already available. And if you try to sort of, you know, dial it in with your TV, a lot of older games look good. You know, Ultra Street Fighter 4 looks pretty damn good, but
So when it comes to the dock mode, you might want to use the scaling feature that's available in the power options. Just saying. Most, not all, games will not detect the external display. They will still think you're outputting to the normal display on the dock. I know I have the JSOC dock, and it tends to do that with some of the Steam games. Locks at 720p, but you know, whatever. I just use FSR, scale it up, call it good. I'm fine with it, whatever. But I get your point nonetheless.
a game like Spider-Man, it looks very jaggy and very, you know, sort of rough around the edges. Now, this is not available. The Steam dock, the official Steam dock that is not available yet. It's coming out soon, and Steam does seem to be working on some stuff to make the experience better and more enhanced with their official Steam dock. You're only using third-party stuff right now, so that is kind of one of the drawbacks.
And do note that just because it's third-party stuff, the way Valve is going about developing, you know, those fixes for the dock is for the entire ecosystem. They're not looking specifically to have companies build around a fixed piece of hardware and expect the companies to be the ones to bear the burden. Valve is targeting generic stuff in the most broad sense of the way to do it. So a random USB-C, you know, dongle or whatever will work. That or random dock, like I said, I'm using the JSOC dock for my Steam Deck, and all the improvements that Valve makes helps that particular product too. So that's really cool, and quite opposite of the way a lot of the other ecosystems work, where you have to have like this particular manufacturer do this and this particular manufacturer do that. It's less headaches, you know. Like Nintendo will have a very specific way they implement like Bluetooth or something, kind of like what Google did with Stadia. You know, thanks for the e-waste on the controllers there, Google.
Backs with the Steam Deck if you're talking about getting a Steam Deck with your Nintendo Switch as kind of that 1-2 punch, because if you're someone that likes to play a lot in, you know, on your television or something like that, it definitely will detract from your experience. It's still playable, but it doesn't look as good as something like a Nintendo Switch game in dock mode does, and it doesn't run quite as good as a Nintendo Switch game in dock mode does. But if Steam is able to do something with their dock to make it so that the games do look and run a little bit better and they look proper on your television, this is the best 1-2 punch that a Nintendo Switch owner can have. You're getting games from the Xbox, you're getting games from the PlayStation, you're getting all the latest third-party games. You're getting all of those games. You're buying these games on a system that you can play portably. You're playing these games on a portable system that has a kind of crappy battery life, but at least you can play it on the go. If you're in your house, of course, you could just get a really long plug and plug it in. But then you also have the option to play these games on your computer, which you probably already have. So now we're talking about having access to all these exclusive games from all these different platforms, whether you're talking about the Nintendo games that are available on your Switch, and that's what you play your Nintendo games on, and then everything else is available on the Steam Deck. I don't understand why we're making a console war out of this. I don't understand why we're trying to pit these two systems together. When I'm sitting here like, yo, these two systems are a great 1-2 punch. Like, I'm covered no matter what games I want to play from whatever developer I want to play. I could probably play them on my Steam Deck, and there are ways to play Nintendo games on there too, but we're not going to go too far down that rabbit hole because, you know, Nintendo doesn't like when you show that stuff off. I really feel like the Steam Deck is just getting its footing, but I need people to stop comparing it to a Switch and stop comparing a Switch to a Steam Deck, because it's not about that. They're two different experiences. They're two different things that they bring to the marketplace. They just do them in a similar enough way. But if you're able to expand your mind a little bit and able to think a bit outside the box and look at it from a perspective of, well, if I have a Nintendo Switch, I should probably get a Steam Deck so I'm not missing out on these third-party games, you're covered.
So speaking as someone who owns the deck, I also have a OG Switch now, in case anybody doubts whether or not I own a Switch. Why would I have that many Switch games? Really what it boils down to is it's for the experience. What experience do you want? Generically, the deck I have left docked for the most part. I don't really take it around. Honestly, when it comes to like PC gaming, you know, saying how I'm a Linux user and a Linux gamer, that's an interesting dichotomy. The Steam Deck is generically, I view it as my Linux gaming console. I might mess around a little bit with some of the more esoteric, you know, tweaking that you can do with things like Proton and all the other jazz. But generically, I'm playing games that are generically just, you know, good on deck, playable on deck. So in my case, I have about 50% of my libraries either verified or playable. So I have about 850-ish games. So about 450 are unplayable or untested. So for me, there's really no difference because ironically, I use a PS4 controller on the deck as a Bluetooth controller. You can also use the Joy-Cons as a particular interesting dichotomy there. So if you want to use your Joy-Cons as a controller on your Steam Deck, go right ahead. Just pair them with your Bluetooth on the Steam Deck. But yeah, for me, it's all about more just overall gaming. There are certain games that I have specifically on the Switch because like I can get them physically, whereas I can't get them physically on the deck. Or that, you know, I have an Xbox Series X. I have that mostly for backwards compatibility because I don't want to go through the headaches of some of the emulation nightmares that you have to go through. PS4, honestly, that's probably the last PlayStation console I'm going to be buying anytime soon. Just saying for me, but really what it boils down to is how do you want to experience your games? And that's really all gaming has ever boiled down to. So hearing it from I'm just gonna say essentially Nintendo fanboy is interesting to hear. And he has a bunch of other games and all that stuff, but really what it boils down to is specifically this user is known as like the Switch guy. So
you're also getting Xbox games. You're also getting PlayStation games that you could play on one device. So stop the console wars with this, man. Stop it. It's ridiculous. This is what you do. You buy the Switch, which you probably already have, and then you pick up the Steam Deck to complement it, and you're playing whatever the hell you want. If you're a handheld player, this is a no-brainer to me. If you're a console player and you like to play on screens and stuff like that, you have a computer. Your Steam games are going to run on it. They're tied to your Steam account. What's the problem here? So stop the wars, man. These two systems are great together. That's where they really shine, is when you have them both and you're having.
Oh, yeah. So they're all great in some type of way, a combination. I just don't have to buy all three now. That's always been my gripe is, oh, I gotta buy all three of these consoles in order to actually, enjoy playing them. For the Xbox games or the PS4 games or the Nintendo games. Really don't have to do that. I can really basically just buy like two things and call it good. So I don't have to spend $600 on the PS5, and I don't have to spend $600 on the Xbox Series X. No, well, I already did that. I don't have to spend 300, 350, $200 on the Switch. So I can drop that on a one $650 device and call it good. It's pretty intriguing when you look at it that way. It's like $1,200, $650. Kind of how you want to address it, I guess.
Having them both and getting these experiences with both of these systems. So I don't know, man. It's just crazy to me that so many people try to pit these two systems together because it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to me at all when they're two different experiences. However, they complement each other so well, and that's just going to get better once things like Game Pass come to the Steam Deck as well natively, because you can kind of run Game Pass on it, but it's kind of herky-jerky. I'm talking about natively. It's coming natively to the system, and then it's just going to be a whole new ball game. And it's a ball game that Nintendo Switch owners should embrace. You shouldn't be angry at the Steam Deck. You should want a Steam Deck. You can get one for like $400. Yeah, it's got a little paltry 64 gig memory, but just get an micro SD card. Get a one.
And that's where the fanboy is. It's got a paltry 64 gigs. Bruh, your OLED only has 64 gigs. Like, let's be real here. And I know one of the requirements as a Switch owner is to actually buy a micro SD card. But to be fair is fair. The Switch only has a paltry 64 gigs too.
Terabyte, 512 megabyte or gigabyte, and you're good to go. I mean, I already had to buy one because some of these Steam games are just freaking big. But let me know in the comments section down below what you think. Am I crazy? Should these two systems be engaged in a war with each other? Is this what people want? Is this just drummed up by the video game industry to generate clicks, or should they live in harmony? And should you guys realize that if you love your Nintendo Switch, you'll love your Steam Deck as well, and having these two systems together covers you for pretty much everything. And as always, guys, thank you for checking out this video. If you are new to the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe.
All right, so he's not wrong. If you don't want to spend money on a Xbox, and you really don't want to spend money on a PS5 or insert PlayStation here, I don't think there's really anything wrong with going and doing it the old-fashioned way and just gonna have two. I know for a long time I was a two console person. Like I kind of, when it came to like the Wii U, I had kind of written that off because it was just like, whatever. So I had an Xbox and a PS4. Well, that kind of changed when I was able to get a Wii U for half a decent price because I didn't view it as worth the money. And well, I was an idiot, and the Wii U is one of my favorite consoles. Unique experience. So I think being able to meld, kind of condense down the console choice and experience, the console choices is still there, but you have another contender that kind of takes the other two consoles and melds it down a little more into one that is a little more digestible without the $1,200, $1,600 cost plus games cost and all the other stuff. So honestly, I'm not saying he's wrong at all. I think he's actually quite right that they do complement each other. But the one thing I do take issue with is the little, it comes in with a paltry 64 gigs. Bruh, the Switch does too. Or 32 if you go with the OG. So fair is fair. But really, at the end of the day, I have no disagreements. I think console wars are quite frankly stupid. I think even the whole PC master race is dumb as crap too. So game where you game on what you want to game on. Just remember to stay within whatever you are fiscally able to And don't overspend, don't go into debt for it. Don't, like, these are not credit card worthy purchases. This is entertainment. So if you're going if you're going into debt to be entertained, I don't know what to tell you. But if you're looking for something, if you don't have the money for both consoles, but you want both those experiences from Xbox and PlayStation, the Steam Deck is a really good place to go.